Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Port of Shadows, a novel in the Black Company. And this is a pretty interesting novel for multiple reasons. I just finished my reread of it as part of rereading the entire Black Company in preparation for the new novels, and I I had an okay time with it the first time around. This time around, I actually enjoyed it because after being with the Black Company series being so fresh on my mind, I could really appreciate much more what this book was doing. So I actually enjoyed it quite a bit more this second time around. So this book, it occupies a very interesting place in the Black Company series to date. Chronologically, it happens very early on. In those days, the Black Company was in service to the Lady of Charm, as it were. But the interesting thing about this book is that it has to be read after Soldiers Live. It has to be read after the rest of the series has been published to date. So, because it contains some things that don't work unless you read the series as a whole. So, first and foremost, what is this book even about? In those days, like I said, the Black Company was in service to the Lady of Charm, and Lady had them dispatched to a town where they were essentially garrisoned for so long that they became part of the local economy, for the better. And they were doing what they did in her service all usually time, hunting down rebels, that kind of stuff, and they were pretty much just on standby. When they begin to investigate a mysterious threat, the Resurrectionist cult has plans to bring back the Dominator using the Port of Shadows, and it's their job to locate the Port of Shadows, which is said to be a person. And what happens from there, it is where the story begins to get very interesting. So, first and foremost, the thing that's interesting about this story is that Glen Cook wrote some things in it that make it so that even though this book, in publication order, is the most recent Black Company novel, chronologically it happens so much farther back. He does a lot of new things, a lot of different things in this book, and he wrote into the book reasons for why he does what he does that I didn't quite I didn't really internalize until this second reading. First and foremost, for this book, we get like a whole slew of new characters. There's even new Taken, which were not part of the main series. The Black Company has sorcerers working with them, which were not part of the main series around this time, and that sort of stuff. And it's all explained by not this setup in the book, as well as the way that things work in this book, in this particular book. The first thing to remember is that this book is it's treated as it's treated as a dubious history of a time for the Black Company because of the manner of the adventure in which they become embroiled and the way certain things were handled, the way certain things were done to them, the way they were. The way they were managed, you can see, by the lady specifically. It so it is very much a case of an unreliable narrator, and that just crops up more and more as the story progresses. Because to start with, and this is one of the most common complaints with the with this book, is that Croker, who is the analyst at the time and the analyst in this book, he reads nothing like the Croker from the main series, and there is a reason for that. There is a reason for that because of the very specific situation he's thrown into, as well as what we slowly realize is being done to the Black Company as part of their engagement in this particular adventure. It also makes sense for this particular story to be revealed to us now, and to be read at the end of the series, at the main series, because of the way that the main series ends, and the type of information that the Black Company gets access to. It makes sense that this adventure would resurface at that point in this particular manner. So it all works. The other thing that also explains some of the strange behavior of the Black Company characters that we know, because it's not just Croker that's behaving very unlike the character that we saw in the main series. It's also the other mainstays of the character of the main series. It's the not just people on the Black Company side, but even the Taken. They behave in this particular adventure. They behave very differently from the characters that we saw in the main series, and that's all intentional. It makes things interesting because this as this is essentially a new book, we get a whole slew of new characters who never appeared before and who will never appear again. In a way that's explained. We have our characters, the characters that we know operated in one fashion, operating in an entirely different fashion for very different reasons. And as a result of that, it adds a bit of mystery because we don't know how things are going to play out with this story. And that's exactly what happens. What begins as one thing, slowly the story just changes shape so many different times over the course of the novel. It starts off as one thing, then as it progresses, it changes into something completely different, with a much more human, a much more down to earth, a much more internally focused kind of story with regards to particular characters within the company and with characters that the company is hosting, and then it transitions into exactly the kind of story we love when it comes to the Black Company, which is just this all-out campaign that it ultimately culminates in, as can be expected of pretty much any Black Company novel. So it works. It's just that unless you really stop and think about what's being done here, it can read very jarring, and I can understand why that throws many people off. In terms of what this book does by itself, it's very interesting because it can be a very slow burn book. Once again, because of the manner of the adventure in which the Black Company is thrown into, and the mystery here, and the way that things begin to unfold in a manner that just raises more and more questions. This book reads much more like a mystery than most of the other Black Company novels to date. And what also contributed to that that slow feel to it is that, once again, the person who typically assists us with making our way through the mysteries that Black Company becomes involved in, the analyst, was not functioning the way he typically does in this book. And that's where the unreliable narrator aspect kind of comes in. So it's an interesting book, and the other reason why it has to be read now is because it not just makes sense given the way that the series ends, it also contains huge spoilers. It contains a reveal that directly contradicts the main series, directly contradicts what happens at the end of the first major arc of the series. And from the first major arc of the series, we can tell beyond the shadow of a doubt that the main series is the correct thing. What's revealed in this book makes no sense whatsoever. But once again, that's where the unreliableness of the narrator, where the myopic nature of this adventure comes in. Like this book is steeped in shadows. It's steeped in mystery. It's steeped, like, a lot of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it is just not revealed. You're left to infer things by what's mentioned here and there, by tidbits. It's an interesting reading experience, and one that I enjoyed tremendously. I enjoyed quite a lot more the second time around, because I really, I knew I'd read this book before. It was an okay read, and I knew the reputation it had, so I approached this book trying to just sit down and pay attention to what it does, and to see if I could make sense, if I could understand why it does what it does. And because of that, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit more the second time around. So, is it up to par with the rest of the series? No, I would say at best this is like a middling of the Black Company series. It's a middling adventure, because it's just that much of a slow burn, and the way that the Black Company is used in this story is not necessarily one of the more fun things, though it does it does go in a very interesting direction towards the end. In addition to that, because of the way that this one is written, a lot of the characters that make the Black Company, that can make the Black Company very fun to read about, that can add a bit of spice to add a bit of seasoning to the soldier life that they display. They just were not included in here in a way that makes sense for what happens in this book, but which I feel like it overall was a detrimental impact to the story as a whole. But once again, it's something that makes sense for this book. So overall, I would say it's very much of a middling experience, which I think compounded with the way that this book is written, as it's meant to be an unreliable account. I think between those two things, it's one of the reasons why it's so badly misaligned by Black Company fans. But at the same time, it's a Black Company book. Like, there is no such thing as a bad Black Company book. This was pretty good. When you really stop and really think about what exactly Glen Cook gets up there. Like, my guy cooked with this one in some interesting ways. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about about Port of Shadows, I think. Now that I'm done this, I'm very excited to dive into Lies Weeping, which is the first of the new quartet that's coming, A Pitiless Reign, which, by the way, gets mentioned in this book. Let's just say the entire phrase behind A Pitiless Reign is it has me very excited for what that quartet is going to get up to. So yeah, a much more fun experience the second time around, and I'm just excited. What can I say? Yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.